Now, attention is basically a very simple cognitive process, very important cognitive process, probably the most important one as far as anything to do with learning, anything to do with memory is concerned. Without having attention, there is no consolidation of information, there is no retention of information, and basically you can't be this. So attention is an extremely important cognitive concept, right? Deals with everything after sensation till your recognition of that particular concept or thought or idea, right? So extremely important concept. It's your tendency to respond to some stimuli more than others at any given time, or to remember some more than others, right? So in a sense, there is a lot of stimuli going on right now. There's a lot of sensations in your body going on right now, right? If you think of your pinky toe on your feet, there is some kind of sensation there. Either you're feeling hot over there, or sweaty over there, or just itchy over there, right? Or cold over there. And then if you move your attention to, say, the part behind your knee, that part might be feeling warm, it might feel sticky, it might be sweaty, right? And then if you move your attention to your stomach, then you might be feeling hungry, you might feel gas, you might feel sweaty again externally, right? So at any given point, there's a lot of sensation going on, right? These are just internal sensations. Now, right now you're looking at a laptop probably, you're hearing me, so that's two sensations, vision, audition, right? You're sitting on something, that particular chair, sofa, whatever you're on, bed, all of that is a sensation, right? The temperature of the day, that's giving you some form of sensation. If you've eaten something, that taste is still there in your mouth, or if you're drinking tea or something right now, that's also a sensation. So at any given moment in time, there's a lot of sensations that are being registered by the sense organs, right? Attention is the focus that you put on any one of these or a few of these sensations at a given moment in time, right? So right now you're focusing on my voice and the sight of this PPT, right? These are the two primary focus areas for you right now, right? So you're attending to these two stimuli over all other stimuli, right? You're probably, until I mentioned it, you were not even thinking of your pinky toe, right? So that's the basic idea of attention. It's the response to a particular stimuli and a focus on it, right? So seeing your or hearing your own name or seeing your photograph, these are all things that catch our attention, right? Uh, it's also sometimes referred to as the process through which certain stimuli are selected from a group of others, right? So it's a selective process, meaning that it's a choice between all the different kinds of stimuli that are coming in. Attention has a focus as well as a fringe, meaning that of all the stimuli, certain ones are central to what you're thinking or feeling, and others are existing in the fringe. And if you pay attention to them, then they become the focus and everything else becomes your fringe, right? So the field of awareness is centered on a particular object or event or thought. And when the object or events are away from the center, that's referred to as the fringe, right? However, they can move from the focus to the fringe or from the fringe to the focus, right? It involves three basic things. One is alertness, that is how ready you are to deal with that stimuli that appears before yourself. It requires concentration. So once the stimuli is registered, the ability to focus on it. And sometimes it involves searching for something, right? So if you're just sitting and you're not doing anything, then you're looking for something to take your attention, right? So of all the things, like, even if you're doing absolutely nothing, just imagine there's nothing, you're just sitting on your sofa, right? And you're just thinking. That process is also, in a sense, paying attention to something. That is an internal sort of attention, right? And then if you're, say, sitting on a sofa, excuse me, and your phone vibrates on the side, right? The fact that you go to it is a search for focusing your attention on something, right? So in a very condensed form, attention requires a certain amount of effort from the individual. Sometimes this effort is involuntary, meaning that the stimuli is so strong that it just sucks your attention directly and you can't avoid it. Sometimes it's purposeful. So if you go for, say, like a run, right, or you go to exercise, then you're focusing your attention purposefully. On other times, it's quite automatic, right? So if you hear like a blast outside, your attention will not naturally be drawn to that compared to listening to me, right? So It requires effort allocation. Now it can happen voluntary requirements or involuntary requirements, right? That's depending on the strength of the stimuli. So this is done, right? Uh, right. Now alertness refers to an individual's readiness to deal with a stimuli that appears before them, right? So if you are, say, in a school race, then you're alert that, okay, I need to run, right? I need to be aware who's coming first if you're in the audience. So that's alertness, being ready, okay? Um, Concentration is the focus of awareness on certain specific objects while excluding others. So right now you're concentrating. Your attention has sort of reached a level, a higher level, right, of really focusing on a particular thing for a length of time. And search is an observer looks for some specified subset of objects among a set of pieces. So if you have to like dress up, or you look at your closet and you want to pick out something, or you see a stack of, say, sketch pens and you want to pick out the red color, that's a search for. You'll go through all the stimuli and you search for the right stimuli that you're looking for, right? Now attention, the process is that before even there is attention, there is a stimuli, right? The stimuli stands out immediately. You don't have to shift attention from one object to another. So sometimes this is part of the pre-attentive process, right? Before you decide to selectively attend to something or focus on something, the stimuli just comes to your notice, right? In which case that becomes a pre-attentive process. Then the attentive process is to concentrate, focus, or search through an item, right? So pre-attentive is all the stimuli that is going on, and then which is the strongest stimuli, basically, right? So you're sitting, all of this stimuli is happening. There is light, there is audition, there is touch, there is taste, there is smell. All of this is taking place. Which of these is strong enough to become the focus of your attention, right? So pre-attentive is all the stimuli, attentive is to focus on something, right? So if you look at this photograph, immediately your attention will be drawn to that white bird over there, right? Because it's the one standing out. However, if I had told you count the number of non-white birds, then what would you do? You'd go from left to right and you try and count how many non-white birds are there, right? Which would be difficult to do, but you could still focus and concentrate on them, right? But yeah, but if you're giving no advice, if you're giving nothing, then your attention is directly drawn to the one that stands out because that stimuli is the strongest one, right? It's the odd one out. So it just takes your attention. It doesn't fit, so it just catches your attention. Now in the next photograph, right? Find the marble godwit that is facing to the right, right? So now in this case, if you have to find the one that is facing right, you'll have to really go through all of these birds like that. You'll go, where is the right facing one, and then you land up here, right? This is the one that's facing right, right? Or this is the one that, so basically, it's a process of searching, looking at all the stimuli, finding out which is the strongest one, and then making a decision, right? So naturally, there are different types of attention, right? There is one type of attention which is selective, which is basically you concentrate on a limited number of stimuli from a large number of stimuli, which is what we generally do. We find there's a lot of stimuli going on, we select which one we want to focus on and deal with, and we do that, right? Then we have sustained attention, which is the ability to concentrate on something. So this is a form of sustained as well as selective attention, where you're blocking out all other forms of attention, all other disturbances in your life, right? And you're focusing on this class, and you're focusing on this class for a long amount of time, right? Right. And then the third kind of attention is one of the most researched forms of attention, which is referred to as divided attention, where you're focusing on two things at the same time, right? Two different stimuli at the same time or three different stimuli at the same time. So the classic example of this is driving, right? So think of the first time you were riding a bike or you were driving in traffic. The thought of music playing, talking to somebody, and driving was a very difficult task, right? Because you are a novice at driving and you're trying to concentrate on clutch and brake and accelerator and gear change and moving the steering wheel and all of that, right? Now, when music was playing or somebody was talking to you, that required cognitive effort also, right? So you had to break your attention into two different kinds of work, right? So you have to divide your attention. So for tasks that are new and you're just learning, divided attention is very difficult to manage. Okay, because it requires extra cognitive effort and you may be unsuccessful in doing it properly. Okay, but as you got better at driving, say 6 months you drove every day and you got better at it, soon you realize that you can start driving and listen to music at the same time and it doesn't affect either. You can enjoy the music as well as you can drive very well without any problem, no matter how loud the volume is, right? What has happened? Your attention capability, cognitive capability of dividing attention and doing two tasks has improved because one of the tasks has become very automatic, right? It's become what is known as novel to you, right? You've become really good at it, so it doesn't require as much effort. But initially, when you didn't know how to drive, dividing that attention into two different tasks was really difficult to do, right? So a lot of people they study while listening to music, right? One of the things you might have noticed if you're one of those people, if you listen to new music, like a first time you're listening to a song, it becomes difficult to continue concentrating on studying. That's because there is that new song requires effort from your end, right? It requires you to concentrate on something. Whereas if it's a song that you've heard multiple times, if it's playing in the background, it really doesn't register. Although you're enjoying the music, it really doesn't register and you can concentrate on studying, right? So for divided attention tasks to be like for someone to be really good in those tasks, one of those tasks have to be automatic. One of those have to just register automatically without really bothering you, right? And the other one you can just learn and get better at, right? And concentrate on more. So it's not technically equal division of attention, right? One gets more than the other because one is just more automatic in nature, right? So three types. There's actually a fourth type that we'll get into. I'll show you a video for that. It's called inattentional blindness, which is basically you're focusing on a particular task and you ignore all the other stimuli that are there, right? So you're not being attentive to a particular stimuli. So there is selective attention, which is focusing on a limited number of stimuli from a large number of stimuli, usually one. There's sustained attention, which is again one, where you're really concentrating on a particular task or an object for a longer amount of time. And then there is divided attention, which is focusing on two different tasks at the same time, right? Now, what are the things that affect selective attention, right? There are external factors. So these are factors of the object or item in the real world, in the outside world, right? So if something is large, something is really bright, if it's a moving stimuli, it catches our attention quicker. Therefore, you'll see nowadays people will say on social media, it's better to put a video than to put a post, right? Because a video catches more attention, right? Because it's a moving thing. Whereas if you just keep putting posts, then it's something that I have to read. Whereas if it's a video, I can just watch it and it's just more entertaining, right? If something is larger, it really catches our attention more than something really small. So if there is like, if for example, there was a dot on this top corner of the PPT, right? And if it is a black dot, it would be much more easily identifiable because of the contrast, right? But for example, if this was like a off-white shade, you might not have noticed it unless it was like really big. If it was this big, right? If it was that big, you would have noticed it. Whereas if it was a small one over here, you might not have noticed it, right? So that's important. How big a stimuli is, how bright it is, so how much it's wanting, craving your attention, and if it's a moving stimuli, right? Moving stimuli usually catch our attention much more quicker. Um, the other thing is stimuli that are new and slightly complex also grab our attention very quickly. So stimuli that you're not used to, stimuli that you don't expect in a particular situation, and something that is moderately complex. If something is too complex, you ignore it. So that's why a lot of people don't even look at like modern art and like are not attracted to modern art and like they're not wanting to, like it doesn't grab them like that. Unless the modern art is moderately complex. If it's a really complicated thing, people will just look at it and they won't understand. But if it's like moderately complex, it can grab attention much more easily, right? And if it's modern art, it's naturally novel. So again, that's very important. Um, then factors that affect attention are internal also, how you're feeling, right? So motivational factors. So if say you're hungry, then food will attract your attention much more faster. If you're sleepy, a bed will seem like heaven to you, right? If you're feeling like having a sexual encounter, then you'll find most people attractive in your life, right? So whatever your motivational craving is, that will grab your attention much more quickly, right? Then there is also the psychological domain of say interest, your attitude, how much you like doing something, right? These are all other internal factors that will affect an individual's attention, right? Now we get into the theories. The first known theory that explained the process of selective attention was by Broadbent, right? This is something that all of you might have come across at some point, Broadbent's theory of selective attention. It's actually known as the filter theory. So the idea that Broadbent explained was that there are all these stimulations that are going on in your body, right? All of these receptors send the information to your brain. But when they go to your brain, it creates like a bottleneck situation. There's so much of information flowing through that there's like a bottleneck situation. This is a bottleneck, right? This is a bottleneck. This is the amount of water that I can drink basically, right? But only this much will pass through. It's like a funneling where only this much of water will be allowed, although there is this much available, right? So this is like a bottleneck situation. It's similar in terms of the filter theory according to Broadbent, where there's all of this sensation that is coming, but only this much can be allowed and dealt with by the brain. Clear? So that's a bottleneck situation, right? So he says that for the brain to process all of that sensation is not possible. So there is like a selective filter that exists, right? Which only allows one stimuli to pass through for processing, right? One or two which are really strong. So these are stimuli that are really strong. These are stimuli that really grab your attention, and therefore they pass through the selective filter and they reach the higher parts of the brain for processing, right? So that was the filter theory, saying that there's a lot of sensation coming in, the brain can't process all of this, so it creates like a selective filter, and only stuff that is really strong, right? Stimuli that is really strong will pass through and be registered by the brain and dealt with, right? So in this case, if you follow selective attention filter theory, then there is a lot of stimuli going on in your life, but for you, internal motivation of doing well in the net exam is so strong that you're only listening to my voice, right? And maybe I'm so loud and this yellow color is so bright that your attention is just fixed here, right? So the selective attention filter is allowing this information to pass and you're registering all of this in your higher levels of processing, right? And then he further says that all other stimuli are screened out until they become strong enough, right? And we are only focusing on that one stimuli that gets through. Now, the natural problem with this is that he's saying it's only one stimulus, right? But right now you're focusing on the laptop, you're reading and you're listening to me, and you're sitting somewhere and you're enjoying the fan or AC or whatever. So lots of things are going on at the same time, right? So Trestman in 1962, he said that, okay, filter theory makes sense except for a little bit portion. So he created what was known as the filter attenuation theory, right? He says that this theory proposes that stimuli not only get access to the selective filter, but the filter also weakens the strength. Therefore, multiple stimuli manage to escape. So the filter is there, right? This filter is there. When something passes through it, it breaks it down a little bit. Therefore, it allows two or three different types of stimuli to pass through and reach higher levels of processing, allowing for divided attention tasks or sustained attention tasks for two or more stimuli, right? So this was the filter attenuation theory by Treisman, right? So, for instance, one of these things is the cocktail party phenomena. I'm sure all of you have heard of it. This is basically if you're in a party, right, and you're just walking around talking to your friends and everyone's discussing whatever, and then suddenly someone will take your name, someone will say Bhaskar, and my attention will be drawn to them, even if they're in the corner of the room, right? So what's basically happening is that all of these different stimuli is going on in the party, right? There's a lot of music, there's probably drinking, there's people dancing, there's people, a lot of people talking. However, my my filter is created in such a manner where if there is somebody talking about me, right? A sensory detection of Bhaskar or something that is my interest, right? In which case all of us have ourselves at the center of our lives usually, right? My attention is automatically grabbed, right? So that's the filter. Now there are early selection models and late selection models, right? So there is stimuli, that is Bhaskar. Stimuli is basically audition actually, right? Then there is sensory detection, saying that okay, something's going on. Then there is filter, oh Bhaskar, okay, strong filter. Then there is the recognition of meaning. Bhaskar meaning they're talking about me. Then there is another filter. Should I react or should I not react? Right? I'll say I want to react, and then I select the response. How do I want to react? Hey, you guys are talking about me, or I'll go to them saying, hey, you talk what's going on, or I'll just try and listen from far what they're discussing, and that's my response, right? So the cocktail party phenomena says that there are two types of filters. right? Till now we were dealing with one type of filter, but then there's this cocktail party phenomena where they're saying that there are two types of filters: early selection model and late selection model, right? Have the multi-mode theory by Johnston and Hines, right? These guys said that, oh, this filter and all is too much, right? Like there is no filter like that. Basically, attention is a very flexible system, right? Where selection of a stimuli over others takes place in three stages, right? So there are three stages that a stimuli has to pass through for it to gain attention. The first one is that it has to have a sensory representation, right? So a sensory representation needs to be constructed in the mind, right? So say right now you're listening to my voice, you're looking at the PPT, you're sitting on a particular thing, right? Um, what is going on in your kitchen, for example, is not being sensorily, there's no representation going on of that. Therefore, it's not taking your attention, right? But if suppose something fell down, a plate fell down, right? The sensory representation will take place. What will the sensory representation? Something has fallen. It will probably be a plate if it makes that tang 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 sort of noise, right? And you will sort of visually imagine, okay, somebody must have dropped a plate, it must have fallen like that, and the sound makes sense that it just fell down, and then you might be concerned about it, right? So first stage is sensory representation. Okay, like you get audition, you realize, okay, something has happened that needs my attention. Then it goes to stage two, where you semantically represent it. So you name it, saying, okay, something fell, it sounds like a plate has fallen, or something of a steel object has fallen, right? Because of the sound, right? So the sensory representation of the sound created a semantic representation in your mind saying that, okay, this is what must have fallen. So you label it, right? And then in the stage three, the two of those enter your consciousness, right? Your higher order processing, your attention space. And you're like, oh, something fell, sounded like a plate, might be urgent. And then you probably scream, you put yourself on mute, and then you probably scream, what happened? Or you'll open your door and check what happened, and then you'll see, okay, it's not requiring your attention, or it requires your attention, and accordingly you'll behave, right? So Johnston and Hines multimode theory was this, saying that there are three stages in which we decide to pay attention to something. First stage is it needs to have a sensory representation, either visual, auditory, or whatever. Second is that sensory representation must have some form of labeling, right? Some name, some sense it must make to us. And then the two of them will enter stage three. So according to them, a lot of sensory representation do not get semantic representation, therefore you are not aware of them. So for example, right now the sensation at the foot of your leg, right? It's a sensory representation, but it has no semantic explanation until I brought it to your attention, right? Therefore, it's not registering. However, if suppose you hit a pointed surface with that same part, what will happen? You'll have a sensory representation and you will have the semantic representation of pain, right? And then you pay attention to your feet. So that's how the multimode theory explains attention.